Hey YouTube land, welcome once again to another action figure review by Tycondrius. Now today we're taking a look at a figure that has been reissued, I would say. It's not quite a new figure, and we'll get into that in a minute. But this is the Doom Eternal Ember Skin Doom Slayer or Doom Guy figure. This is made by McFarlane. Now, he did release two previous Doom figures a long time ago. In fact, I want to say, I'm not sure when, I can't even remember when the game was released, but I think at least 3-4 years ago, maybe between 2 and 3 years, he released the first Doom Slayer figure, and there was a chase variant of it, which was like a gold label one where it was all gold. So technically, this is the third release of this figure. And then there's another few after this one. So there's been a few releases of this figure in various paint schemes. And then there's been only one of the demon figures released, which is a shame because there's so many different demon creatures that they could have chosen from to release figures of. And they're being super slow about it. I'm not sure if it's just a licensing issue thing or they're only allowed to produce certain stuff. But this is what we got. So without further ado, we'll have a quick look at the box. So the box, you can see, has Doom Slayer Ember Skin on the bottom, Doom Eternal on the side, Bethesda, and McFarlane. You can see it's for 14+. On the back of the box, you just get an image of the actual game, or from the cover of the game. You have Doom Guy, you have some of the other demons, you have the one demon that they did release with the axe, and I can't remember its name. You have like those weird floating eye things, spider yolks in the background. And you got Doom Slayer legally stuff on the bottom. And it's pretty much a fairly plain box. Now, unfortunately, I don't have still have the box from the previous released figure. So I don't have anything to compare it to. But we'll just run through the accessories pretty quickly, because you get, as always, a pretty much standard black base for McFarlane figures. There's the Doom one, get that. He's done, these black bases come with most of the figures. The DC Collectible or DC Multiverse, Avatar, Legend of Aang. I'm assuming you will get them with the Avatar movie figures too, which they've only, at the time of this recording, they've only showcased images of. And any of the other figures that they generally use. The only exception to the rule was the early Fortnite stuff. I'm not sure if they changed it out since, but the earlier Fortnite figures had larger bases. But even stuff like the Mega figures, like, if I don't knock everything over, this guy, for example, which we'll be getting a review on his own, comes with one of those small bases. In fact, he comes with the exact same size base as the Doom figure, which is this tiny base compared to the figure itself. Other accessory he comes with is his super shotgun, which is exactly the same sculpt as the previous one. He comes with his, I can't even remember what this thing is. It's like some sort of shoulder mounted laser device thing. And he comes with his blade on the underside of his wrist. Now, what's interesting is the blade on this one is pre-attached in the box. If I remember correctly, when I got the original one, the blade was actually separate. The gun and the blade were separate. You plug them in. It just plugs into a simple setup underneath the arm. I'm not going to pull this one out because it seems to be in securely enough. Whereas the one on my other figure just tends to drop out every now and again. So might as well just bring in the other figure because it is essentially a repaint. So here is the original Doom Guy figure, or Doom Slayer figure. And we'll just get into the differences. Now, because this is essentially a repaint of this figure, it still retains the same issues I had with the first figure. And probably the same issues that most people had with the first figure. And what's a little bit of a shame is they didn't update any of the articulation points, which would have been nice on this guy. If it's again stand up. So we'll go with the guns first. As you can see, it's exactly the same shotgun. It's the super shotgun. Unfortunately, it has way less paint apps than the previous version. You see, they actually went all out with the gunmetal silver. You have like brown for the kind of underslung area where you have this bladed piece. They still painted a blade, but instead of being gold, they just went it with a flat yellow. Even the wrap around the handle is unpainted, so they did drop a lot of paint apps on this guy. Seeing the two side by side, it's hard to tell where all the extra paint applications went into him, because he seems to have less paint apps than the previous iteration of this guy as well. And I think he was a slightly more expensive figure because of the whole inflation since this guy came out. I think this guy was just around the $20 mark, and since the prices of everything's gone up, I think this guy was at 22, 23, so he's gone up a small bit. So for paint apps on this guy, you have like silver dry brushing washes over his boots, over most of his armor parts. You have skin tone, whereas on the new one, where the skin tone normally is, it's just painted grey. So this guy's pretty much just a two-tone color figure, with the exception of his visor and this added flame effect. The flame effects are actually separate pieces that are glued on over the figure. So this headpiece is a flame effect just glued to the helmet of this version. There is some red paint apps when you turn around the back on his back, which is different to the original. What else does this guy have? Articulation wise, he's exactly the same as the original. One of the things that irked me most about the original is if you look underneath the head here, it actually has no kind of neck plate. So it's like a ball joint in the bottom of the helmet and a ball joint at the bottom of the head. But if you move the head in certain directions, you can see the big gap between the neck and the head, which is kind of annoying. You can kind of get away with it in certain poses, but like if you move the head back up like that, you see it's just a massive hollow head on the stick. So it's kind of annoying that way. They didn't fix that with maybe an extra ring of plastic in on for the neck, so it hides it a bit better. Similar with the arms. So the arms have a elbow or upper bicep swivel, which is kind of hard to get to work if you have to move the arm out to the side before you can actually even get it to rotate. He has a single jointed elbow. Where they could have improved on this is if I bring in some of the more recent McFarlane figures. What you got here? So you have like double bend elbows that they've introduced into more of the newer lines. If they could have done that with this guy, we re-sculpted arm, I know it would have been retooling costs, but like as it is, he's pretty much a two-tone figure with a few small dabs of paint here and there compared to the paint applications on the first figure. He's mostly cast in this dark green with the paint apps being the grey. So pretty much they didn't lose out on money on the paint apps for the most part. He does retain this knee joint, which does look a little unsightly. No double knees from what I can see, although it does look like there should be a double knee joint. There isn't. There's no secondary joint down here on the bottom of the ankle, or the bottom of the top of the knee. He can do splits that much. He can hold a shotgun in either hand, and again, just like with the first one, it's a little bit floppy. If you tip it, it'll just drop out, but you can hold it in either hand. His hands are designed to hold it. The only thing is this flame effect will get in the way of the left hand. He does have rotating hands. He does have that standard, I'm not sure if we can get it seen on the camera, but he does have that standard hinge joint for the McFarlane figures. He does have the ankle. He doesn't have the toe articulation, but he does have ankle articulation side to side. His legs do kind of rotate side to side, so he does have that. He has double joint in the waist, so he has the lower waist and the upper chest area has both swivels, so you can do 360 on most of those. As I mentioned, the head is on that ball joint. His shoulder pads are on ball joints as well, so you can kind of move them out of the way just to get him in the position that you want. But it is hard to get him in any sort of kind of cross arm position. It's like only out to the side really is what you're going to be able to get him with. So he is limited. As I said, this blade piece is a separate piece. I'll show it on better on this one. And then he has this articulating in 3 sections, a gun on the back. So there's a ball joint down at the very base of it. You can move around. Then there's a swivel, and then there's another ball joint for the actual base of the gun itself. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a really good, really nicely sculpted figure. Oh, and he does have double peg holes on the bottom of his feet. In fact, does it have a 2020 is the manufacture date on this? So it is 2 years old. Roughly 2 years old. So, and that was depending on when time of release of this figure. I'm not sure if it came out in 2020 or might have been delayed with all of the COVID stuff going on. But since then, they've made lots more figures in the DC line, in other franchises, which have far more improved articulation. And not so much sculpt, like the sculpt is on par. Right? I won't knock the sculpt. The sculpt is actually really good for what it is. Now, what I'm on about with the blade, you can see it more clearly on this. There's just a single peg and a slightly, this is where the main peg pegs in, and then there's like a small indent at the back where it just plugs in, just, or kind of connects in up here. When I got mine, it was loose in the box. It was a separate piece, and you're supposed to plug it in, and it's supposed to kind of just fit there. And it's supposed to sit in that peg, but it's very loose, and if you're moving or manipulating the arm around, it has a tendency to knock off. So like this guy has all the same articulation points, and I even did a review for this guy, so you can see it's easier to see it on the top of the head in this because of the difference in paint between the neck and the actual helmet. So it is a big hollow mess in underneath the helmet, and in fact a lot of people who reviewed this figure said the same thing. It's a really nice figure, really nicely sculpted, but it could have been improved upon. Even if they had given upper bicep swivel here, upper bicep cut, to give the arm more swivel so you could swivel it in towards the body, because there's no way of really doing it. Now, as I said, there is other versions of this guy coming out. There is an all-white version with an actual different weapon. He comes with a sword that looks similar to the Demon's Axe with the kind of red glow to it. I can't remember what the sword is called, but he comes with a sword instead of the shotgun. I'm not sure if he comes with both, actually, a shotgun and sword, but he does come with a sword. It's all white armor. I think it's called the ivory armor or something along those lines. So there is that one. And the other one that's coming out that I think it's already started to ship at the time of this recording, but I kind of passed on it at the time, and it was available through McFarlane's website only, is the original Doom Slayer figure. So it's based on the Doom guy, he's called, as opposed to Doom Slayer. It's based on Doom guy from the way back in the early 80s, I think it was, when it first came out. Or mid-80s when the first Doom game came out. It's based on that design, character design. So he has like a kind of almost green tank top style upper body. And then he has like the arms. The one thing that's interesting about him is he looks like he's a retool of this figure, because the arms have the same kind of bulky sculpt, and they seem to have the same single jointed elbow. Because it still has this one blade thing. I think it has a shoulder cannon-y piece as well, and then he has like one weapon for the offhand, but he has like the big square bucket style helmet as opposed to these kind of more rounded biker helmets that they went with for the kind of newer design. But overall, he's a kind of cool classic design figure. I do hope to get one at some point, but haven't managed to get one yet. And when I do, I will do a review for him. I had pre-ordered this white armored one, and I kind of just dropped the pre-order for it recently because it's, again, just a repaint of this guy, and it has all the same bells and whistles as this guy, except with the only difference, it has a different accessory of the sword. So that's really the only go-to for it. So I kind of wanted it at the time, but then kind of decided I already have two, and I want to try and get the retro one to kind of complete the set. But there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed this this video review for Doom Slayer, the Ember skin. It is a good figure. If you did miss out on the first figure, which is this one, I do recommend getting this one as well. I know I've bashed it for its articulation points. This one on the secondary market is actually going for silly money now, because you can't get it anymore, and I wouldn't recommend paying over the odds for it. If you wanted to, you probably get this guy. He's the exact same figure, and then repaint him to look like this guy if you wanted to. If you want to go all that extent to repaint him, make him like, you could probably heat these pieces up and take them off and make him just a regular Doom guy or Doom Slayer, and then repaint him to your heart's content. So there is that option for those who missed out on the first one. Otherwise, you're paying through the nose for this one, and at the end of the day, it's really just worth the $20 it was sold for initially, so I wouldn't recommend paying over the odds for it. So there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video review, and as always, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe to my channel, and help me grow my channel. Cheers, guys.